Husband chains his pregnant wife every night while his mistress cheers. But tonight, as the metal digs into Emily's trembling wrists, neither Mark nor his laughing mistress knows they're tormenting the daughter of the Chief Justice, a woman whose silence is far more dangerous than her screams. Emily, swollen with a child she desperately wants to protect, lowers her eyes like a woman defeated. But her heartbeat stays strangely steady, almost calculating, almost waiting. Mark stands over her like a king in his own kingdom, but the way his hands shake each time he locks those chains hints at a man hiding secrets far bigger than infidelity. And Sienna, the mistress who claps and smirks as if pain is entertainment, leans closer, fascinated by Emily's calm, but never once wonders why a chained pregnant wife refuses to beg. Why does Emily endure the chains without a single scream? Why does Mark look terrified whenever she makes eye contact? And what will happen when the Chief Justice discovers what his daughter has been suffering in silence? Emily inhaled sharply as the cold iron tightened. Even the smell of the chain, raw metal mixed with Mark's cologne, dragged her mind back to childhood courtrooms where she used to sit beside her father, Chief Justice Adrian Cole. She remembered the echo of the gavel, the stern voice saying, "Justice protects the weak, Emmy." Back then, she believed justice always arrived on time. Tonight, it felt late, but not lost. Mark's fingers trembled slightly while securing the padlock, and Emily noticed. His hands never shook before, not even during arguments, not even when she first confronted him months ago about his late nights. The tremor wasn't guilt, it was fear, a fear he masked behind arrogance. Emily filed that fear away like evidence. Her father always said, "The smallest tremor is the loudest confession." Sienna tossed another grape into her mouth. "Make sure she can't move. Aye, babe. She's still too proud." Emily kept her voice steady. "You enjoy this, don't you, Sienna?" Sienna grinned. "More than you know." For a moment, Emily flashed back to the first time she met Sienna, back when Sienna pretended to be a coworker. She had been overly friendly, overly curious about Emily's schedule. Emily remembered thinking, "She watches too much," but she dismissed it. That was her mistake. Or perhaps, she thought, it was fate laying the first breadcrumb. "Stop talking to her," Mark snapped. "You lost that right." Emily raised her chin slightly. "Did I? Or are you just scared of what I might say?" Sienna laughed, but Mark's jaw tightened. Another confession, another tremor. The baby kicked, sharp, insistent. Emily whispered, "I know, I know." Her voice cracked lightly, enough to appear fragile, not enough to reveal the steel inside. Then she heard it, a faint vibration on the floor. Sienna's phone. A message lit up the screen. Emily shifted subtly, reading the glowing text. "The documents must be signed by Friday or your boyfriend goes to prison." Her breath paused. This wasn't about cheating. Something deeper, something criminal, something her father would recognize instantly. Mark noticed her glance. "What are you looking at?" Emily turned away before he could follow her eyes. "Nothing," she whispered. But inside her mind, a door opened, and behind it, a strategy awakened. Emily's pulse raced, but her expression stayed calm. Too calm. Mark hated that calm. It reminded him of the day she found the first suspicious receipt in his wallet and simply said, "We'll talk later." He never forgot the chill in that word, later, because Emily never raised her voice. She just observed, collected, memorized. That terrified him more than any scream could. Tonight, that same calm stretched between them like a blade. Mark cleared his throat. "You'll stop glancing around like that. You're not in control here." Emily met his eyes, slow, deliberate. "Then why do you sound unsure?" Sienna scoffed. "Please, she's just trying to get in your head. She's weak. Look at her. Pregnant, chained, powerless." But Emily wasn't powerless. She carried herself with the quiet dignity her father stamped into her since childhood. Whenever she walked into his chambers, even senior lawyers stood straighter. But Mark never saw that world. She hid it because she wanted a normal life, not one built on fear or influence. She married Mark because she thought he was kind, thought he was gentle, thought he could be trusted. That was before she found lipstick on his shirt, before the bank alerts showed withdrawals she didn't make, before whispers in the hallway hinted he had enemies she knew nothing about, and before Sienna walked into their home and declared, "I'm staying." A sudden sharp pain pulled Emily back to the room. The baby kicked again, harder this time. Mark noticed her flinch. "Oh, relax. The kid is fine," he said flatly. "You being dramatic won't help anything." Emily's fingers curled slowly. "And doing this to me helps?" "It keeps you obedient," Sienna replied with a grin. "Mark has big plans. You were just slowing him down." Emily studied Mark carefully. The way his gaze darted toward the phone on the floor, the way he swallowed hard, the faint tremor in his left hand, everything screamed stress. Fear? Pressure from something bigger than both of them, something he was desperately trying to hide. Mark stepped back. "Chain her feet, too. She's been moving too much at night." "Mark?" Emily's voice dropped, soft but commanding, a tone she rarely used with him. "Why are you suddenly desperate? What did you get yourself into?" He froze. Sienna answered instead, a little too quickly. "Nothing. Just shut up." Emily smiled faintly. "You don't shut up someone who knows nothing." Mark snapped. "'Tar enough!" He stormed toward the phone, grabbed it off the floor, and turned it face down on the table, but not before Emily caught the sender's name. A name she recognized, not personally, but from years of hearing her father discuss corruption cases during dinner. She remembered him shaking his head once, saying, "Men who owe favors to criminals always bury themselves." Mark was burying himself, and he didn't even know Emily held the shovel. As he pocketed the phone, Sienna whispered, "Friday. We're running out of time." Emily didn't move, but her heartbeat steadied. Whatever they feared on Friday, she would use it. Mark tightened the last lock. "Sleep well," he mocked. Emily lifted her eyes. "Are you sure you want me awake for what's coming next?" Mark stiffened. Sienna swallowed, and the baby kicked, like a warning. Mark slammed the door as he and Sienna left the room, the sound echoing through the hallway like a warning. Emily listened to their muffled footsteps fade. Only then did she let her breath shake. But just once. She couldn't afford weakness. Not here, not tonight, not when she could finally smell the flaw in Mark's confidence. Her wrists throbbed. The metal was tightening as her hands swelled slightly from pregnancy, but she forced her body still. Pain didn't scare her anymore. What scared her was what Mark was planning, because it wasn't just infidelity. It never was. He had crossed into something darker. A memory hit her suddenly, her father whispering in their garden when she was 12. "Emmy, the most dangerous criminals are not the ones who shout. They're the ones who pretend to love you." She didn't understand then. She understood now. Down the hall, voices rose. Sienna hissed, "Mark, she's getting suspicious." "She's always suspicious," Mark snapped, "but she can't do anything. She's chained." Emily listened closely. She had learned to use silence as a weapon. Silence revealed everything. Sienna continued, "We need those documents signed before Friday. If he changes his mind—" "He won't," Mark cut in. "He knows what's at stake." Emily's mind sharpened instantly. He? Who was he? What did he hold over Mark? Her pulse slowed in calculation. She remembered overhearing Mark months ago on a call with someone whose voice was low and impatient. She could only recall one phrase Mark said that day. "I gave you what you wanted. Don't contact me again." Then he hung up and acted like nothing happened. That was the first night he came home smelling of Sienna. "Are you sure Emily didn't see the papers?" Sienna asked nervously. Mark scoffed. "She barely sees anything now. Look at her. Pregnant, exhausted, she's not a threat." Emily's lips curved slightly. Not a smile. A reminder. A dangerous thought flickering like a flame. People always underestimate the quiet ones. On another flashback surfaced, her father teaching her how to read body language in the courtroom. "Watch their eyes, Emmy. Eyes confess what mouths hide." Mark's eyes had been confessing for months. Suddenly, footsteps approached again, fast, angry. Mark flung the door open. "I forgot the key," he muttered. Sienna hovered behind him, biting her lip nervously. As Mark reached near Emily to grab the key from the drawer, she spoke without looking at him. "You're shaking again." He froze. "I'm not—" "You were shaking when you put the chains on," she said softly. "You're shaking now. What are you afraid of, Mark? Friday? Or the man threatening you?" His breath hitched, just slightly. But enough? Sienna glared at Emily. "Shut up. You don't know anything." Emily raised her eyes, calm, piercing. "I know desperation when I see it, the kind only men in serious trouble carry." Mark grabbed the key and backed away faster than he meant to. The door slammed again. Emily inhaled sharply. If Friday was their deadline, then Friday would be her beginning. And Mark still didn't realize something crucial. He wasn't the only one with powerful connections. The house went quiet again, but it wasn't peaceful. It was the kind of silence that pressed against her ears, heavy and waiting. Emily shifted slightly, feeling the chain drag across the wooden floor. She stared at the closed door, replaying every word she overheard. Friday. Documents. Prison. He. Every piece was a puzzle, and puzzles were something she grew up solving. Her father made sure of it. Another memory hit her with sharp clarity. She was 16, sitting in his study as he reviewed case files. "Emmy," he said, tapping a paper, "criminals slip when they panic. The trick is to wait long enough for panic to speak." Tonight, panic was screaming through Mark's actions. Her breathing slowed. For the first time in weeks, she felt something that resembled hope, a small spark, but steady. Suddenly, footsteps rushed down the hallway again, not Mark's, not Sienna's. These were lighter, quicker, like someone pacing in frustration. Then, a loud thud, something smacked against the wall. Sienna's voice followed, shaky and irritated. "Mark, he keeps calling. Why isn't he picking up?" "He needs to calm down," Mark snapped back. "If he panics, everything falls apart." Emily's pulse tightened. Everything. That word hung in the air like smoke. "What if Emily talks?" Sienna hissed. Mark snorted. "Talk to who? Her precious father she thinks can fix everything? She hasn't spoken to him in months." She cut him off. Emily shut her eyes. The comment cut deeper than the chains. It was true. She had pulled away from her father, wanting to prove she could build a life without leaning on his power. Mark used to praise her independence. Now he used it as a weapon. Sienna lowered her voice, but Emily still caught it. "Are you sure he won't hurt us if the papers leak?" Mark didn't answer right away. Emily waited. Silence, again, revealing everything. Then she heard him whisper, "Once Friday passes, none of this will matter. We'll be out. She'll be gone." Emily's blood chilled. Gone. Not metaphorically, not emotionally. Gone. Sienna hissed, "What if she refuses to disappear? What if she fights?" Mark let out a low, humorless laugh. "Emily? Fight? She couldn't even raise her voice when I told her I was keeping the baby." Emily's eyes sharpened. She remembered that moment clearly, the night he told her he'd take her child. She hadn't cried then. Instead, she felt something break inside her. Not emotionally, strategically. She had learned from her father that the strongest retaliation begins in absolute silence. A door slammed somewhere deeper in the house. Sienna stormed off, muttering curses. Mark walked back toward the bedroom. His steps were slower this time, heavier, like a man drowning under invisible weight. He cracked the door open and stared at her in the dim light. "You!" His voice trembled. "Stop listening." Emily tilted her head. "Then stop giving me things to hear." His jaw clenched. He slammed the door again, this time so hard dust fell from the ceiling. Emily exhaled. Friday was 3 days away. 3 days to gather information. 3 days before Mark's world collapsed. 3 days until her father would know. And when Chief Justice Cole knew, Mark wouldn't need chains to fear her anymore. He would fear justice. Night settled heavier than usual, pressing against the windows like something alive. Emily shifted slightly, testing the limits of the chain. It scraped the floor with a soft rattle, small, almost nothing, but enough to remind her she was trapped in a place that used to be her home. A home she once decorated with joy, imagining a family. Now it felt like a prison she never saw coming. A sudden flashback hit her. Mark's proposal under fairy lights, his voice shaking as he said, "I'd never hurt you." She believed him because his eyes looked honest then. Now those same eyes avoided hers at every opportunity. They were eyes that carried debt, fear, guilt. From down the hallway, muffled arguing began again. Sienna's voice, sharp and cracking. "If he goes to prison, it won't just be him. We'll both go down," Mark hissed back. "Lower your voice. Emily might hear." Emily smiled faintly. She was hearing. She was hearing everything. She used the silence between arguments like stepping stones, piecing together their downfall. Sienna pushed again, voice rising. "I'm serious, Mark. What if that man changes his mind? What if he exposes you first?" "He won't," Mark snapped. "I delivered the original documents. He owes me." Emily's heart jumped. Documents again. The word kept circling her, to tightening like the chain on her wrist. Her father once told her that criminals always repeated the words that scared them most. Tonight, documents sounded like the center of this storm. "Then why is he calling every hour?" Sienna shot back. Mark didn't answer. Footsteps approached. Emily quickly softened her posture, lowering her gaze like someone defeated. But inside, she was awake, calculating every second. The door opened. Sienna stepped in first, arms folded, eyes filled with hostility, but also something new. Fear, the real kind. Emily watched her carefully. "Rough night?" she asked softly. Sienna stiffened. "Shut up." But something about Sienna's trembling hand told Emily this wasn't just nerves. It was someone realizing they were in too deep. Mark followed her in, pacing back and forth. "We need money if we don't pay him by tomorrow." "You said Friday," Sienna almost screamed. "They moved the deadline," Mark muttered, wiping sweat from his forehead. Emily's brows lifted. "Deadlines change when people don't trust you." Mark spun toward her. "What would you know about trust?" "Enough to recognize when you've broken it," Emily replied quietly. Mark took 2 long strides toward her, anger flaring. "You think you're smarter than me? Huh?" Emily didn't flinch. "No, I think you're more desperate than me." Sienna rushed forward. "Mark, stop. She's baiting you." Emily noticed something else then, a bruise on Sienna's arm, faint but fresh. A bruise Mark didn't give her in the room earlier, meaning someone else had grabbed her. Recently. Emily's eyes narrowed. Whoever was behind this wasn't just threatening them. They were warning them. "Who hurt you, Sienna?" Emily asked quietly. Sienna froze. Mark snapped, "None of your business." But Sienna's silence said otherwise. Emily inhaled slowly. The house wasn't just unsafe. Someone dangerous was circling it. Someone Mark feared more than losing her. Someone coming before Friday. Emily's hands tightened around the chain. Fear wasn't the only thing in the room now. Opportunity was.